Hello all. I want to give a special thank you to the people who are worship leading tonight and singing and playing and flicking our slides through so that we could all sing together. There are people tonight who are going to make us cups of tea and coffee. So I just really appreciate that. People bringing the things that they love to do, the things that they're good at, and bringing it to the community so that we can all benefit. It's a little thank you. Earlier in the year, our congregation worked collaboratively on what we called our ways of working together. We had an in-person meeting at the church before a service one night. Then we had a Zoom meeting for people who might not have been able to join us. We did that later in the week. All up, I think we had about 25 people who came along and gave their thoughts. We came together in small groups and we discussed what we thought were important principles or guidelines that would... that's weird. Is that the Bible? Tracy's Bible. We had a scribe in each little group, and the scribe tried to kind of capture what people were saying and their thoughts, and then we put that all together and we looked at it and we tried to discern common threads. TJ, may he live in our hearts forever, recorded all of this, and he sent it to me. And then I made an attempt to sort of put that together into a few dot points that faithfully reflected what had been said. And that got sent to the board and tweaked a little bit so it sounded a bit better. And then we put it on Slack, we put it in the newsletter so that everybody could look at it and comment. I tell you all of that just to remind you that our ways of working together, which is what I'm going to talk about tonight, didn't come out of a meme or out of a little thought bubble, but actually came out of a collaborative process, a very transparent process that the whole congregation was invited to be a part of. But ways of working together, we don't want them to become things that are of actually little use. You know, they sit somewhere on a website, you kind of click on them and read them every now and again. Forget about them mostly. So what I want to do is I want to spend this week and next week just unpacking what I see in them that's helpful, flesh them out a little bit from my own thoughts and experiences, and I've even put it in my calendar for later in the year to just point to them again. Because what we don't want to happen is for us to do all this work and then whatever, it doesn't really matter anyway. So if you lead a small group or you're part of a small group, I encourage you to think about these ways of working together, how that works in that setting. Or imagine yourself at supper after church. How do these impact the way you interact with people? How do these play out together? How do these play out when we're together? So, let me read what we came up with. And this is on the website. So, MCC's ways of working together. We said, we aim to be a radically inclusive church, reflecting Christ to each other and the world. So, as a congregation, we aspire to the following. Actually, we're not quite there yet, but Shane's on the ball. We aspire to the following ways of working together. And then there are these 4 points. As a diverse congregation, we seek to value and respect the diversity of people, beliefs, opinions, and experiences within our congregation, knowing that diversity makes us a better congregation. We understand that conflict can fester and then escalate quickly, so we aim to handle interpersonal conflict early with vulnerable honesty and involve only the people who need to be involved. We try to stay focused on solving the problem and avoid attacking the person. We aim to understand the other's viewpoint, especially when we disagree. The third one was about privacy and confidentiality. Because privacy and confidentiality are important to us, we're cautious about sharing other people's personal information, including stories, photos, videos that might be sensitive. We endeavour to check in with them if in doubt. And the final one was, we seek to continually grow in our personal maturity and self-awareness, taking responsibility for our own behaviour, feelings and boundaries. We're not afraid to apologise or get help when we need it. So I want to look at the first half of our ways of working together this week and then look at the second half next week. So this first one, let's just go back. We aim to be a radically inclusive church, reflecting Christ to each other and the world. This really gives us the reason for thinking about these ways of working together, because we want to reflect Christ. And when you think about it, Christ really knew something about inclusiveness. I was thinking about the people who followed him. Out of those that he called to him, one was a zealot. That's kind of akin to a suicide bomber plotting against the Roman government. That's what a zealot is. But he also had a tax collector follow him. That was someone who worked for the Roman government. Jesus had disciples who were women, which was unheard of for a male rabbi. The women who followed him included the wife of someone who worked in the household of King Herod. I can only imagine she was a woman of very high status. And a woman who had been demon-possessed, so probably didn't have a lot of friends. He healed people miraculously, including the daughter of a Jewish synagogue leader, the servant of a Roman centurion, a woman considered unclean because of her constant menstrual bleeding, and a blind man begging in the street. So that's why we want to be radically inclusive, because Jesus was. So as a congregation, we aspire to the following ways of working together. The word aspire was really carefully chosen. These are not rules that you have to follow. Like if you don't measure up, well, you're just not welcome here. That's not what these are. Aspire means that none of us measure up. None of us are going to get these right all the time. But aspire means, we're going to give it our best shot anyway. We're going to shoot for the moon and we might hit the top of the trees. And what a great community we would be if we managed to hit the top of the trees. So here's our first guideline. As a diverse congregation, we seek to value and respect the diversity of people, beliefs, opinions, and experiences within our congregation, knowing that diversity actually makes us a better congregation, a stronger congregation. So we seek to value and respect. They're interesting words. I think respect gets so overused these days, we've probably forgotten what it actually means. So I looked up its synonyms. It's things like admire, esteem, to have a high opinion of, to appreciate. We appreciate diversity. And value, having to share space and life with people who are different from us, who hold different beliefs and opinions, who have different experiences from us. That's not something that we should tolerate that. We should tolerate people with different opinions and different beliefs. It's not something inconvenient that, we just kind of have to suck it up. No, it's something of value. Like these differences in opinion and beliefs, differences in the people that we have here with all these different experiences, is actually something that we value. Like, we've got this. Something that we wouldn't want to be without. I remember talking about a passage in Corinthians ages ago, and the passage in Ephesians that Jazz read is quite similar in that it pictures the church as a body made up of all different parts and needing all of those different parts in order to function well, because it doesn't function well unless there are different parts. And I reckon that those passages about the church being a body with different parts, that is MCC's verse, along with Romans 8, I think. Because that idea says that unity, wholeness, a strong community comes through diversity, not in spite of diversity. It's diversity that makes our congregation strong. And I 100% genuinely believe that. I really appreciated what Kevin had to say about friendship last week. One of his points was that he's made some surprising friendships here in this congregation. Friendships that he would never have expected to make. Every friendship that you make with someone who is different than you, who sees the world differently from you, is a friendship that really opens up your world, makes it a bit bigger, helps you to see just a little bit further than you would have without it. It gets us out of our bubble, out of our echo chambers. It gives us opportunities to grow. And I look back over the last, whatever it's been, year and 2/3 or something, I don't know, and I have learnt so much from people here, from listening to other people's experiences and how they see the world. It's just really opened the world up for me and really benefited me. So that's that one. We value and respect diversity. The next one is that was decided on in all of our gatherings, is that we understand that conflict can fester and then escalate quickly. And so we aim to handle interpersonal conflict early with vulnerable honesty and involve only the people who need to be involved. We try to stay focused on solving the problem and avoid attacking the person. We aim to understand each other's viewpoint, especially when we disagree. This is a good one, and it follows on from that diversity thing, because while diversity is the way to a strong community, conflict is bound to happen, probably more so when you have diversity. And so this is a really important way of working together. So Scott and I did, remember the Living Well with Differences course we did last year? It was great, and the leaders introduced us to this well-known model of how conflict develops. And I've taken much of the following. I went back and I looked at my workbook and I thought, man, this is so relevant to this way of working together. So I've taken a lot of the following from that. So according to this guy called Speed Lees, he is the creator of this model, and frankly, what a great name, Speed Lees. I wish I had an interesting name like that. So according to him, conflict often develops and escalates in a really predictable pattern. So it starts as a problem to solve. You've got this problem and it needs solving. Problems are issues or challenges that have solutions. You just have to find them. So if you have a problem, then what you have to do is find a solution. So 2 small groups want to meet online, but MCC only has 1 Zoom account and both groups want to meet at the same time on the same night. Well, there's a lot of potential solutions to that problem, isn't there? Takes a little bit of creative thinking. But if the problem is not solved, then conflict gets escalated. It escalates to this level 2, a disagreement. A disagreement is often about how to solve the problem. And it's a very normal thing that happens. It's an expected part of solving problems. Each leader thinks that their group has a better reason for having priority over the Zoom account. It's not convenient for either group to meet on a different night. Well, the key is to find a creative way to solve the disagreement or to convince all parties to come to some sort of shared point of view. That's the goal if we get to a disagreement. However, if a solution isn't found, then sometimes frustration starts to build, and that results sometimes in more issues being brought into the situation, maybe past grievances. Maybe this triggers somebody to think about another conflict that you had with this same person. And so now you're bringing that problem in as well. And so you get this issue proliferation. If the conflict continues to be unresolved, you end up with a level 3 conflict. And we call this a contest. A contest, well, there are winners and losers in a contest. And no one wants to be a loser. And so sides start to form, and clarity about the problem to be solved starts to get a little blurry. It quickly becomes more important to win than to actually solve the problem. One leader goes ahead and just schedules the Zoom meeting. There are plenty of other platforms that the second group could use after all. I mean, they could use Messenger or something. The second leader finds out that the first leader's just gone ahead and scheduled the Zoom call. And so they tell their group members that their group has been locked out of Zoom. Even though someone suggests, well, I guess we could use Facebook Messenger to meet, the group kind of feels resentful. I mean, why should their needs be overlooked? How come the other group just goes ahead and just uses the Zoom without really solving the problem? If the conflict continues to escalate to level 4, oh, do you see what happened in level 3? More people start to be brought in to this thing. So now instead of 2 people with the problem to solve, now we've brought some extra people in that really don't need to be brought in. So if the conflict continues to escalate, then individuals and groups start to act a bit more aggressively, and the situation can quickly deteriorate. So you end up with a fight or flight situation. Those who are conflict avoidant leave, and those who remain are even more committed to winning. And principles and dogma are often evoked as justification for various points of view. Speedley says that this level's characterised by strategising how to win the fight and garnering the resources necessary to do so. The next Sunday at church, a member of the first group makes a light-hearted jab about getting the Zoom meeting to a member of the second group. It doesn't go down well. There's a bit of verbal argy-bargy, and then one person storms off. Other people inevitably hear about it, and they weigh in on who's right and who's wrong. And that week at both small groups, the situation's dissected and reviewed, and everyone agrees that they're justified in feeling how they do. And the people in the second group, they think the leader of the first group is divisive and shouldn't even really be leading a group. After all, 1 Corinthians tells us that we should not be divisive. And so they write a letter to the board expressing that. They add the Bible verses. The leader of the other group hears about it and declares that nobody should have to put up with this level of abuse. After all, it says in Ephesians that we should speak gently to one another. They announce that they're leaving the church, and 2 other people say that they're going to leave as well. Level 5 describes this level of conflict in which hope for reconciliation is generally just lost. Emotional responses overwhelm thinking and problem-solving approaches. Combatants are focused not just on winning now, but on punishing and getting rid of their opponents. The remainder of the first group They're devastated. They talk to other people in the church about how devastated they are by the unchristlike behaviour that's going on in the church. They will not tolerate it. A whole war of nastiness breaks out on the church's social media. People get unfriended, uninvited to birthday parties. Has anyone seen this stuff happen?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it happens everywhere, of course. I mean, we see it happening globally, don't we, in events of this week. But I think sometimes churches are particularly susceptible because we mistakenly think that as Christians we have to be nice to each other all the time and pretend that we don't actually have any problems with anyone else. So when a problem happens, it tends to get ignored instead of sorted out. The leaders of the course that Scott and I did emphasised that once a conflict reaches level 3, that's not too far. You need to find somebody outside the situation who can come in and help you sort things out. It's not a failure, it's just sometimes you need that outside perspective. You need a neutral mediator. Not someone recruited to your side, a neutral mediator. Because if a conflict gets to level 4, the chances of it de-escalating rapidly diminishes. So the simplest way to manage conflict is to keep differences back at level 1. Or if they go higher, to move them back to level 1. So that everyone understands and agrees that we have a problem to solve. We've got a problem. It needs a solution, creative solutions. It's not a contest to win or a person to beat. We may feel frustrated and angry. We may think that we're being attacked or belittled, ignored or slighted, but somewhere buried under all of that, there's a problem to solve. And we have to go back to the problem and solve it. So we focus on the problem rather than the person. And we don't involve anyone who doesn't need to be involved. And coming back to our ways of working together again and the words that we had there. If we need help, we get somebody else involved, gets to that level 3, not to recruit them but to help us solve the problem. There are 2 interesting passages in Matthew's Gospel that seem to contradict each other. The first one's in Matthew 5:23. It says, "So then, if you bring your gift to the altar, and there you remember that your sister or brother or sibling has something against you, that is, you've done something to them, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First, go and be reconciled to them, and then come and present your gift." Several chapters later, in Matthew 18, there's another instruction from Jesus. If you've done something against your sister, in other words, she's done something to you, go to her and tell her what she's done. Do you see how they seem to conflict? In both cases, the onus is on you. If it's you who has the problem, go seek them out and try to resolve it. If it's them who has the problem, go seek them out and try to resolve it. It's like Jesus doesn't want to let anybody off the hook. He gives us no leeway. If there's a problem brewing, then go and sort it out. Solve the problem before it turns into a conflict. So they're our first 2 points in our ways of working together. And I've got to be honest with you, I find this stuff hard. It's really easy to stand up here and talk to you about it, but it is hard to do. I don't like it when people get offended or hurt or defensive. I try to avoid situations where that happens. So I have a ways to go before I can do this stuff consistently well. But you know what? I'd really like to be good at this. and I'm hoping you really want to be good at this stuff too. So let's give it a shot together, shall we?